Thursday. Thursday again.
Hey.
We're back. We're back to Thursday. Welcome to Brewing Controversy. I'm Lucas. This is David. And you now have a front row seat to our relationship. Drinking craft beer, bitching about life, liberty, and the pursuit of decent legislation.
And apparently decent camera angles where my camera doesn't jolt around on me.
Hot mess today.
I am such a hot mess.
He woke up at like 40 minutes ago, and it's...
I did.
Brian's here. Hi, Brian. How you doing, man? If you're here, feel free to say hello. If you choose not to say hello, feel free to lurk. That's okay, too. So, yeah, this is what we do. We get together usually on Thursday, but it's been chaotic lately because of that hardworking guy there in the lumberjack cosplay.
What cosplay? I don't understand. I'll go down and get my axe. As several people have testified, I go full on Gimli if I have an axe in my hand, man. I will actually move faster with an axe.
Toss me. All right. So
I would like to see that happen.
that would actually be pretty funny. I don't think I could toss you without starting at the top of the stairs or something. You're still not on your headphones, I don't think. I can still.
No,
I
need
he's
to.
only half dressed and half prepped. His camera's all fucked up. He doesn't have his headphones turned on.
No, unfortunately, I just realized I let these headphones die for a second. I need to go grab some other ones real fast. So actually, I'll let you monologue here like the stupid villain you are, and I'm going to go grab those here real fast.
That means I have to like rub my hands together and play with my non-existent dastardly mustache. Anyway, it's good to see everyone again, as always. Great to have you here if you're out there on Facebook or YouTube or where we go live for these insightful and sometimes disturbing, inappropriate. Also, we forget a lot of times to tell people, we don't filter here, so yeah. If your sensitive little ears are easily offended, you got to get that under control because you're in the wrong place. Anyway, eventually David's going to successfully get his headphones running. He looks like he's testing them. I can see him in this tiny little postage stamp of a window. It's really fun. Anyway, it's good to see everybody. As I said, the way this works, we'll start out with a little thing we call Hot Take Happy Hour. This was something we devised as a way to chit-chat about the news of the day with, all the latest. Because there's always something that breaks. Like right before we go on fucking show, like court halts, special master review in Trump,
Right.
in major blow to Trump. It's like, we didn't even have that in the list and it showed up. So there's always something. Hey, Gibby's here. What's up, Gibby? Good to see you.
Hi, Gibby. And see now there's no echo, and I can hear everyone.
Yes, yes. We have the full David. Please keep your.
We
shirt.
do.
The full David, ladies. The full David. So with that, let's get into it. Let's talk about the news of the day ish and the week ish. So I guess I'll start because I have the breaking local news. So I was just kind of minding my own business, and I saw somebody pop up with a post on Facebook today about the Grand Rapids police shooting killing a suspect, and I was like, what, again? Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. But apparently what had happened was there's a guy that was wanted for a murder about a month ago, and they had tracked this dude down, and they were trying to move in on him, and apparently he decided to not only take off, but start shooting at the cops, which that's a tough one, ladies and gentlemen. If you, if you want people to come defend you and try to have a conversation about your relationship with the cops, probably a good idea not to be shooting at them. So for a 2-block foot chase, there was back and forth gunfire, and he died, but there is some question whether or not he realized he was fucked and may have blown himself away. I kind of hope that's it. I kind of hope that's it with incontrovertible evidence, because it'll be a little easier conversation. there is room to be, entertaining the topic that if they could have gone a little less Waco on it, maybe they could have nabbed him by surprise. Kind of like when I used to say if they could have, grabbed David Koresh at the hardware store instead of having to like put on a whole show. So I don't know. There's a lot of hard questions to ask. Basically, it's going to end up being a shit sandwich, no-win kind of scenario. Vengeance may have been had for the victim of his murder, but facts, information, and future prevention will probably never be resolved because, like David likes to say, when the only tool you have a hammer, or only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So who knows? I don't know.
Yep. Which actually, that's one thing we're going to end up throwing into this. That's one thing we're going to end up. I just realized we left this off the hot takes, and we'll toss it in here at the end. But we do want to make a brief mention about what's happening in China. So,
right, that's true.
Here, while I go on, while I talk about the Amazon thing, you can go ahead and slam that into the.
I'm going to. I'm going to add that to our list, and you take us into this Amazon thing because that was interesting to see.
So. This was ridiculous. This came out this morning. So for those of you who aren't aware, several prominent African-American sports players have apparently become involved in this Black Israelite sponsored documentary that details how Jews are in control of the media and all the levers of power. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Black Israelites, they are a radical racist organization that primarily targets, as for recruiting, African Americans and chooses as the focus of their blame primarily Jews and whites. As a white guy, I can
both
look at some of it.
Or either. Or yes.
What? Yeah, right. It's all the above. Basically, they have they have this made up
Jewish
mythology.
And white or Jewish or white?
Jewish or white and white, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
They have this made up mythology that basically all the Bible is actually written entirely about black people. Black people were also behind basically everything that's happened in human history, and it's all been covered up. What?
Except Hollywood, apparently.
Except Hollywood, yeah. It's all been covered up by whites. They're a nutty organization. Like they believe that they believe Moses was black. They believe that.
Which is to say that Moses probably wasn't like David McIrish Daniel over there, Lily White either, but He
was a Semite. The Jewish people of antiquity were Semites, and so they basically think that everything is Wakanda forever. They watched Black Panther as a documentary, not as a Marvel movie.
This kind of proves to remind us that every group has their nuts, right? Like really every crew in the spectrum of sociopolitical cohorts has some nutty people that are out on the edge that embarrass the rest of us that are trying to do good things.
Yeah.
Because like I am with like my extreme, inconsolable, liberal, unrealistic friends, Brandon, I tend to. Oh shit! I know a Brendan here. Let me be very clear which one I was talking.
Brandon.
Anyway, so as I like to tell some of those people, like you make the rest of us look like idiots and make it hard for us to make our arguments in a lot of cases. And I would imagine that being a person of color would be very similar to that. Like you nuts are making us look crazy when we try to explain to people that everybody in the Bible wasn't like pale fucking white.
Right.
We don't get to have that conversation because you're over here trying to convince everybody that they're like, well, Wakanda forever.
No, but back to the point. So this is a very anti-Semitic, very anti-Jewish film.
Fucked up, man.
And
I'm always
a lot of people
when two minorities pick on each other in any way. That always pisses me off. This is really weird and gross.
It's bad. But I mean, a lot of people have called on Amazon to pull this movie and stop selling it on Amazon. And Amazon today said no. they said, "Oh, well, there's a lot of people on our platform who have opinions that are objectionable, but we see it as our obligation to allow everyone to sell." I want to explain to you how fucking stupid that is. That's literally like saying, like, I mean, there are books.
And what's the name of this thing? I'm going to look it up while we talk.
Oh God, you're going to ask me, and I had it written down, and I didn't bring it on with me.
Didn't you? I'll look it up. Oh, you gave me the link to it in a text.
I did.
Yeah, I'll go look it up. You keep talking.
Anyway, so I mean, this is insanity. I mean, the idea that the government can't make me say anything I don't want to say, right? If I'm under oath and they set up certain conditions, they can compel me to, by punishment, to give information, but they can't make me say, yes, I like Joe Biden, right? They can't make me say that. I have to choose to say that. That's an opinion. There is nothing anywhere that protects anyone else's. You have an absolute right to say your opinion, but there's nothing that protects you from being punished for that opinion, right? The government can't make me say something, but socially and the market, they can punish me for it, right? It's not protected. It's not like self-incrimination or the government saying you can't say I like Joe Biden, right? This position by Amazon that they're the defending free speech. This isn't free speech, right? This is hate speech. This is speech designed to incite and promote hatred and violence against a minority community. It's one thing when we get on here and we criticize the wealthy. The wealthy are not a particular minority, right? They are a group of people who, by their actions, have placed themselves within a group. When we criticize certain people with certain moral leanings, like, say, for instance, hard right evangelicals, right? When we criticize that group, or criticize Christians in general, of which I am one, these are people who have chosen to belong to a group. They are not, by their very nature, Christian. No one's born Christian, right?
Careful. I know a bunch of people want to argue with you about that one.
I'm sure they do, and they're wrong. So, I mean, these are people who, by their very nature of their birth, belong to a group which has been traditionally targeted. And the fact that Amazon wants to sit there and say, no, we can't stop them. We can't stop someone from saying that these people should be harmed or lying about these people to promote harm to them is,
well, I mean, people might wonder why this is in the news and in any kind of discussion, but when you look at the way things are described versus what they are found out to be, the description on this doesn't really go where you went, but it's still whacked out. I mean, it lost me at the second line. Since the time the European and Arab slave traders stepped foot into Africa, blacks have been told lies about their heritage. This was all by Satan's design. I'm out. That was where they lost me immediately, right there. For he is the father of lies. Since biblical times, there had been a satanic agenda to destroy God's chosen people. I'm done. Yep. You didn't even have to get into the anti-Semitism. I'm through with it. It's nuts already. But that's my, my washing. And sweet baby Jesus, indeed.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one, which is yet another film. And ironically, this is from the other side. So the Israeli government has taken issue with Netflix over their depiction of a Palestinian family being killed during the Nakba. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Nakba that's what the Palestinians refer to as the Israeli takeover of what is today the eastern part of Israel, where predominantly the population was Arab Palestinian and Muslim, and after conflicts with the Jewish settlers who had moved in, many of them were forced out at great loss of life and tremendous loss of property. It is this event which has continued which is the genesis and is the cause of the continuance between the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, right? Is when we hear on the news things about these quote-unquote Palestinian refugee camps, these are people who are still claiming refugee status because from their perspective, the Israelis are squatting on what was their land 70 years ago. So obviously, from our perspective, we'd be like, it's been 70 years, guys. It might be time to, send in that change of address.
Yeah.
But part of the Palestinian gripe has been that the Israelis have gone through this long process of denying the existence of the Nakba. And Netflix has put this movie on called Fada. And in Fada, there is a scene of Israeli soldiers bursting into a home of Palestinians and killing them during the Nakba. And the Israeli government has said, no, this is anti-Semitic speech. I will support every single day.
Convenient representation of the shit that happened and the thing that they don't like. They found themselves unable to control the propaganda. See, a lot of people that are new may not know, but I have a pretty big Israel hate boner. Not Israeli hate boner. Israel hate boner, because Israel can fuck itself. I think we basically let that shit fucking corrupt fucking nation get away with fucking murder, literally, all the time. And my theory is the whole world just turns their back and says, oh, what, that? Oh, what? Huh? Because we're still trying to make up for World War II. I don't think that the people fit into the same column, but the nation and leadership has just, my whole fucking life made me go, what? Really? So this strikes me as them trying to control the message to make sure that they never have to look bad, which is basically what the whole fucking world is busy trying to do for them most of the time.
And the problem that I have is that there is the Israeli right wing is very much like our right wing in that they have this view of themselves as the best. We can't be challenged, right? Just like white American evangelicals have this view of themselves as they are the ultimate example of humanity. Mm-hmm. A great many.
They're all great. You're great.
Right. A large percentage of Israelis see themselves as the rightful inheritors of all of the Middle East, and that it should all be theirs, and that from the belief that God promised it to them, and that everyone else who's there is inferior and needs to be driven off. And the problem is that the Israeli government has been relatively, for most of its history, there have been some very big examples under some very great leaders of the Israeli government trying to turn around and say, no, this isn't how we should be doing business. This isn't how we should be existing. This is poisonous to us as a people to continue to do this. And the problem is the right wing keeps on seizing control and seizing the narrative because people are afraid, and they keep on perpetuating that fear because every time they turn around, they go and beat up on the Palestinians, and the Palestinians react, and they react with violence, and that makes the Israelis afraid, and it creates this never-ending cycle where neither side can really pull away from the violence. And honestly, I have ideas on how it should be addressed, but none of them are particularly salient at this point. I think the main thing is...
I mean, you probably like me, want to just show up and tell everybody, you're being stupid, you're being wrong, you're a jackass, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you two are right, let's go into a room and solve this shit.
Right, I mean,
that's usually my style at the end of the day.
Right, and that's really what I wish we'd do. But I mean, covering up, having this stupid narrative where we're trying to pretend like these massacres didn't happen, that Israeli admittedly they were terrorist organizations like the Stern Gang didn't kill hundreds of people, including other white people, right?
Right.
I mean, it's this part of Israeli history that they go out of their way to avoid talking about. In the same way, Americans like to avoid talking about, the slave catcher militias or so many other things that were dark in our past. I hope that the Israeli society can get to a point where they can accept that bad things happened and something has to be done
Make things right.
to begin that. Wait, I mean, that's one of the things that's hardest about this is you can never make things right.
Well,
You can just try and make things better
that's
going forward. I mean, I think that's hard for some people to understand in these situations. With everything that's happened between the Palestinians and the Israelis, there's nothing that's ever going to for the Israelis who died innocent Israelis who died in acts of terrorism. Nothing is ever going to bring them back. For the Palestinians who died, innocent Palestinians who had their land stolen and who died as a result of Israeli heavy-handedness and military expeditions into places where they've lived for as long as the Jews in that area. It's all we can do is hope that both sides finally decide that they want to progress forward in a better way.
Yeah. Well, speaking of trying to solve complex problems, you have a few bills that you would like to discuss. Kicking off first.
All right, I'm going to try and go through this as quickly as possible.
Railroad strike.
I argued that this should have been a pet, and I got Tribune vetoed out of this. I want to clear this is under protest that I'm shoving this into Hot Take Happy Hour. So you're going to have to bear with me because I'm going to talk fast.
David made what us marketing director types see frequently is a dismissive, quick executive decision, and didn't fully examine the creative that was put in front of him when he approved our show graphic that did not contain the material as a primary content.
We're going to go through this really fast because there's a lot to unpack here. So right now,
the rail strike's pretty straightforward.
The rail strike is pretty straightforward, but the thing is, it's part of a bigger issue.
And get a little better or stay shitty, right? Is that where we're at?
I mean, where we're at right now is shitty, shittier, and we could have solved this damn problem right now. I mean, that's where it's at. Basically, Congress, this lame duck Congress is about to pass 3 bills, all of which are dog shit. I want to explain to you how dog shit these bills are. And the problem is Democrats are passing these off as, oh, look at what we did. We did a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I have to look at this and say, I support you guys because you're obviously much better than the alternative. But there's times when I really wish you all would take a step back and realize that you're handing your ass to the Republicans for no objective gain in this instance. So the first one I'm going to talk about is not the railroad strike, because the railroad strike is straightforward. Most of us know this, but I'm going to wrap up with it. The first is this Respect for Marriage Act, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people have hailed this as a great thing because it protects gay and lesbian and transgender marriages from being ignored or denied because the Republican-controlled Supreme Court wants to unravel Loving VVA and Oberfell because it hurts their little feelings as opposed to genuinely violates the Constitution. The problem is that when the Democrats made their pitch, Senator Lee from Utah kept on pushing for more religious protection, more religious protection. Now, what did he mean by religious protection? Well, the compromise that essentially they've worked out is this.
The right to hate.
It is the right to hate, and I want to explain how this works. People with sincerely held religious beliefs, which I want to point out, the court has tried repeatedly to define that moment, and they can't. And what that tells me is that the court uses it as an escape hatch for conservatives. And they have consistently, right? To do something bad and say, well, it was a sincerely held religious belief. How do you define a sincerely held religious belief? I want the court to explain that at some point because they've never done that. Every other test that the court builds out for, like when is free speech fighting words? When is free speech hate speech? When is a crime a hate crime versus a non-hate crime? We have tests, right? We build these check boxes, right, that you have to check off. Does it do this? Does it do this? Does it do this? Okay, it's hate speech. this sincerely held religious belief basically allows businesses to continue to discriminate against gays, lesbians, and transgender. But more importantly, here's the big carve-out that pissed me off. Just sent me over the moon. States that don't want to don't have to issue marriage licenses to gays, lesbians, or transgendered people. Now, they still have to recognize marriage licenses issued to such couples from other states.
Yeah.
But they don't have to issue them because it would have offended federalism. No, it is a 14th Amendment right. The rights of citizens shall not be abridged. No. No.
It's more of this pretending like you have to play nice with the shitty people. It's a way of playing victim in a big way, right? Like, to me, a Democratic Party with some balls would have said, "Nope, fuck you. You're going to also allow them to conduct those marriages, and you're going to goddamn sign off on it and honor them too." But you know what, David? You know what this always comes back to for me? Why in the titty fuck does your marriage have to be religious anyway? Back in Tennessee, I think it's still this way. You could check a box on your marriage certificate if it was civil or religious, but there was no box for I give a fuck about this person and I want to give a fuck about them for the rest of my life. Check the love box. And to me, it's ludicrous that in anything after 1950, that any state of the union has that as the fucking fork in the road. Or is it civil or religious? Fuck off. It's a marriage. It's a contract between two adults sharing resources, popping out kids if they choose to, and maybe not sticking around the whole fucking time. And when necessary, outsourcing the fucking to somebody younger and hotter on both ends. Whatever. Not my fucking business. And it shouldn't be any of your fucking Bible's business either.
And I want to progress on because, again, this is a hot take, so I've got to speed up through it.
Yeah.
The next piece that is so stupid is this Kids Online Safety Act. And again, we went to this sincerely held religious belief, right? And here's what happens. So the Kids Online Safety Act, on its face, sounds like a great idea. It's supposed to set up enhanced monitoring for sites that are frequented by minors under 16, right? Mm-hmm. So that they aren't preyed upon by, pedos and other awful people, otherwise known as a significant portion of the Republican Party. Anyway, moving on. The problem is that it also contains these big clauses for parental monitoring, but it doesn't define what obscenity is. And I've seen this setting up online monitoring systems for schools, and I've seen schools get sued over this.
Yeah, this touches a space for you in your life's work experience space. Like this one, to me, I could tell this was going to be one where David would get lit because he's had to work in the environments that these sorts of things touch.
Right. So, I mean, I for a long time, if your kid went to school in the Southeast and your school district wanted to block a site, they called me. Right? I was the guy who your district admin would pick up the phone and be like, "I need to speak to David." Okay. Or if they needed to unblock a site, same idea. Indiana drove me up the goddamn motherfucking wall. And here's why. Because Indiana had this entire thing where school districts would choose to block LGBTQ content. Not porn, but PFLAG. Or any, the ACLU for a while there. And it was insanity. And what this Kids Online Safety Act allows is this massive loophole for parents to block their gay, lesbian, and transgender children from accessing this content. It also gives states and schools and online service providers, internet service providers, the power to report to parents, "Hey, by the way, Timmy might like Jimmy." And now, and resources like suicide hotlines designed for gay, lesbian, transgender, and queer youth. All of this can be blocked by these organizations. So I'm especially looking at places like Florida, where they have the Don't Say Gay bill, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, in the name of the Kids Online Safety Act, none of you can access this. So if you're 15 and you know that, you prefer people of the same sex or gender or however you want to define it, I don't care. We're going to hunt you down. We're gonna use, because you're a minor, we're gonna use this information to hunt you down and, I don't know, throw you in a conversion camp or something.
My favorite part of this, David, is how these fucking yahoos think that more roadblocks are the answer. These control freak, totalitarian, brainwashed pieces of religious shit that...
Well, I want to clarify. They don't think more you have to remember, when it comes to guns or food safety or environmental regulations, they definitely don't think more roadblocks are the answer.
It's always selective. But, I don't know why people, or how, I know why, they're brainwashed idiots, but I don't know how these people convince themselves to live in such stupidity. When is the last time prohibiting teenagers anything ever worked out well? All you're doing is making them gayer. Because when they finally get they're going to go from your fucking polo shirts and Dockers that you force on them in your private fucking religious schools. The day they're out of the house, they're going to go full fucking leather, daddy, fuck you, is exactly what the fuck is going to happen. If you wanted them to step gradually into the life that you don't want them to have and maybe not freak you out, Karen, you just blew it. Because now they're going to go full fucking bore.
No, you know what I'm going to say?
Their real selves, they're going to go all out. So congratulations, you're creating an entire population of flaming queens. You win.
You're forgetting the alternative, which is, I feel, somewhat what these people are looking for, which is, no, they're going to off themselves.
Well, that too. Yeah,
they're going to get depressed. They're going to feel isolated. They're going to have they're going to have trouble assimilating.
They would rather people that are different than them just die. We do know that value of the right.
Yeah.
I would say that those are the two sides of the coin. It's just either going to go en fuego 1,000%, or we're going to see a lot of kids off themselves, like you said, and none of it's good. None of it's good.
No. So the last one is the railroad.
I'm going to point out China, but you're okay. But
the last point of this hot take, because we're basically condensing a pet into a hot take. Looking at you, Lucas.
Yeah, you'll deal with it. We have to talk about Iran. I'm going to say Iran on purpose.
Yeah,
all night.
Liberty and justice for all. And what that hammer says on it, if I had the camera closer, is it says union. Every person deserves a union. And again, the Democrats gave up a wonderful opportunity today. They could have said, because I want to point this out. Lucas, how many days a week do you think a railroad worker works?
I knew this recently when I read things, and now I don't know this.
On average, it's 6. Many work 7 days a week.
I was about to say 8. I was about to try to find the biggest way to drive home the idea that they work long days, and a lot of them.
7 days a week. That means no weekends, no days off. But we gave you a week of paid vacation. But you also have to use that. This is the thing where the union stuck its foot down. They're like, we haven't received a raise in 3 years. We have 1 week of paid vacation, and we have no sick days. We can't get sick without being docked pay.
Which is just astonishing if you think about it. I mean, talk about a completely greed-based set of rules. And we're talking about corporations that are consolidated to the max.
They're primarily owned by one person. Guess who that person is?
Profitable.
They're primarily owned by one person. Guess who that person is?
Can I interest you in today's selection on the buffet? Yes. Unfortunately,
him, Gates, Bezos, and Musk. I want to see him first on the. I mean, this is insane that they cannot even get.
In case you didn't get the joke.
And here's the thing.
It's just
how many
this is a perfect example of putting profit over people.
It's incredible. And here's the thing for our viewers that I want them to understand. How many sick days did they ask for in these negotiations?
It was 4, wasn't it?
They started at 4. They agreed. They said they would agree to 1 day.
Ugh.
1 fucking day. And the railroads couldn't give it to them because they wanted to put their foot down to prove that they didn't have to give sick days. Yeah. Congress tried to pass it to say that Sanders, to his credit, and God love that furry northern woodchuck grandpa,
Bernie is our spirit animal, after all.
He tried to put in 7, but the fact that the Democrats didn't put their foot down and say that they deserved a sick day, I am ashamed of Biden today. I am ashamed of Democrats today. Well, this is absolutely unacceptable. Even Danny DeVito was on Twitter going, "Come on, Joe, really?
Right?
They can't have a sick day?
This wasn't the hardest bargain to talk about, right? The Democrats had an opportunity to look at everyone and say, you got 2 choices. Give up a sick day or daddy ruins Christmas. I mean, financial, economic ruin until it gets done, or do it now.
For a sick day. For a single sick day. I mean, I'm sure you all can tell the level of incensed that I am that so many Democrats sat there and cowered in their seats at the Republicans going, no, we won't do it. You know what? At that point, for something like that, you stare them in the eye and you say, go ahead, vote it down.
David, let me ask you this.
Do it.
Would it have worked? Because these were 2 separate bills.
Well, that was the deal. Is that you can't put the sick day in the main bill. Yeah. We have to vote on it separately. Right. Which is the centrist
Republican for we want what we want, and then when it comes to what you want, we're going to make sure it gets voted down.
Well, no, and it's also so the centrists can say, "Oh, well, it's so sad. Well, we voted for it.
Yeah,
we did.
Right,
but it couldn't get 60 votes.
We tried.
We're so sorry.
We tried. Could they have flipped the order of the votes? Could they have said, "Okay, fine, separate bill, but you have to vote on the sick day thing first"?
No, they should have shoved it all in one bill. They should have looked Republicans. No,
cut to the chase. If they agreed to play the 2 bill game, could they flip the order?
They could have, but it wouldn't have mattered.
Well, it would have mattered because what they could have done is said, if this doesn't pass, we're going to vote down the main bill, and then you're really fucked. Because
but that wasn't the point. The point was the centrists wanted an out. They wanted the ability to say, "Oh, we stopped the rail strike, but we couldn't get them their vacation days. We just couldn't do it because they didn't want to. Because they instead of holding Republicans' feet to the fire and said, this rail strike is your fault because you don't think working people should have a sick day."
Right. Instead of having the nuts. So
I mean,
what's the? I mean, is there anything now?
I mean, the ultimate thing right now is this lame duck session when they should have been balls to the wall. They should have been like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to lose the House, but before we lose the House, see these nuts? I'm gonna beat you like a goddamn drum with 2 giant brass balls. And instead, they sat there and they're like, oh,
it's so true. This should have been it. It really should have been it.
They're kind of squishy, like over-boiled eggs, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh,
yep. That should have been it.
That's what we got.
What does the rail worker do now? I mean,
if I were them, I'd strike
again.
I'd go ahead and put Congress's feet to the fire and be like, we're not accepting this without a sick day. If you want to come in and arrest us, fine. Guess what? You aren't gonna have enough people to work the railroad. And if we strike, don't be surprised if the Teamsters show up with us. Don't be surprised if other unions strike in solidarity, and this gets far worse for you.
Yeah, that's a good.
Remember when I talked to you earlier?
Do that. I mean, isn't the answer to this to force everything back? I mean, I guess ultimately they can quit, but like, can they still strike? Because if they can, they should.
I mean, legally, no. It would be an illegal strike.
But what does that mean?
That means they get arrested.
Yeah, but that doesn't help. Like you just pointed out, that doesn't solve the problem.
No, it doesn't.
What are they gonna
Because
do?
none of this. Because the thing is,
They can't just walk down the
unfortunately,
street and be like, "You drive a train. Come here." I mean, like, it's not. It's a skilled. It's a skilled job. You can't. It's like, have you ever driven a Yugo? Yeah. Could you? No, it doesn't work like that.
I mean,
You're not going to go down
it-
the roles of Lyft drivers and be like, "Hey, come here."
They'll go in, they'll seize union assets that are being used to support the workers. They'll go in and they'll arrest them. And while these people are in prison, obviously their families aren't making enough money to pay their rent. It's the threat of, because many unions build war chests for these strikes to continue to support their members while they're on strike.
Right.
Without those resources, those workers' families are in financial jeopardy. So that's the main thing about making it illegal, is they can no longer draw on those resources to keep their families afloat while they're striking. I think one of the main things, though, that I at this point, if I were the rail workers, I'd go for the strike anyway, because I don't think Congress can suffer the amount of damage that would be done within days, if not a week or two, of a rail strike. I think Congress has massively misjudged this.
Yeah.
I think if I'm the Teamsters, I'd be looking at a strike in solidarity, because if they can do this to the railroad workers, then they're trying to do this to the truck drivers. If they're doing this to the truck drivers...
Don't the Teamsters get a free pass? Their strike wouldn't be illegal, right?
That's right. Their strike would be completely legal,
And then you get to
because
back
it
all
would be
these
in solidarity.
conservative piece of shit into the corner because, oh, what? Well, I thought you guys were all for the truckers. What happened to the Canadian truckers? What? I thought you were all about truckers.
And I want to bring
nobody
this...
seems to give a fuck that they were all about cops until January 6th. So
I want to bring this back to something we brought up earlier, though. Remember a couple of weeks ago I talked about the Canadian teachers' strike?
yeah,
So, again, in the Canadian teachers' strike, the government in Ontario tried to make the strike illegal. And instead, they forced the teachers into a position of saying, try and arrest us. When you try and make striking illegal by unions, those unions are going to respond. And I think if I'm the railroad workers, I'm taking a hard look at this and saying, you know what? I'm going to strike anyway. I'm going to fight back. I think that this was stupid of Congress not to at least meet the railroad workers at the bare minimum of what they were asking for, which was at least one goddamn sick day.
well, and it's such naked, disgusting greed. It really is. And speaking of naked and disgusting greed, it's David's favorite time of the week. Ta-da! Boner alert. So, David, what new Musk lane are you?
So I
angrily
love the fact, and I sent
road
Lucas
raging
this
in?
wonderful text about how Tim Cook was going to end up using Musk's severed skull as a masturbatory aid at the end of this. Because
Wait a minute. I wonder if I can find that because it was. Oh, here we go. So, David texts me, and keep in mind these are. What's the time on this? 12:34 a.m. So
which means I just got off work.
Yeah. What I get shitter reads every morning from David from his late night tirades that I missed because I was passed out, and I just get to include them in the morning throne. Jesus, reading the Boer's tweets at Apple, he's just railing at them for everything. Motherfucker definitely woke up today and chose violence. Cook is going to use his severed skull as a masturbatory aid. And he continues, Tim Cook, oh, sweetheart, if you wanted me to publicly bend you over and use you like a Baptist pastor uses a pool boy, you could have just matched me on Grindr. I mean, some of you might not understand how hard it is to concentrate on the first task of the day when I'm reading these texts. So Musk came for Apple in the stupidest of ways because, I mean, I went off on it on LinkedIn. Occasionally I get to make a rant about a principle that also ties into business, especially in tech. So essentially what he's doing is trying to conflate free speech with him wanting to make more money because Big Mean Apple actually vets the software that lands in their app store. I have never had patience for the app store complaint because all of these fucking neckbeard fucking fanboys in their fucking Android powered basements never bother to point out Google does the same shit.
Yep.
Apple polices what's in their store, so does Google. Some of you are just pissy that Apple wants more cut. Well, fuck off. You build a store.
Yeah,
This is literally like saying, I think milk should cost less. Take out whatever the store pays for rent. I don't want to pay for that.
well, and I also want to point out the main thing is that this was an entirely unnecessary war that Musk didn't need. Musk decided to create controversy that hurt him, right? Because the thing is, Twitter already had max controversy, right? It had max controversy because of first because terrorists were using it, Islamic terrorists were using it, and Twitter had to do something about that. That was the beginning of Twitter's content moderation. Then it had white supremacists using it, and Twitter had to do something about that. And then they had controversial political figures, and again, Twitter had to do something about that. Because all these things, advertisers would say, I don't want my product being put right after Nick Fuentes saying, kill the black people or women shouldn't vote, right? As an advertiser, you don't want your product. Hi, I'm Coca-Cola, and I'm with Nick Fuentes.
Yeah.
No, that was not going to go over well. So,
Well, and then
this
Musk
makes sense.
shows up and he invites all those people back in, and
Right, so his advertisers flee. So Musk's idea in his head is, I'm going to create more controversy because I think all controversy is good because I'm actually a fucking moron and probably an apartheid racist.
You know what? I think he watched too much early 2000s pro wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, and he thought it was real. And
He's channeling his inner Eric Bischoff. That's what's happening here.
But now he wants to start a war with Apple. And first off, and I'm going to come back to something that Brian mentioned earlier. First off, he's like, well, I'm just going to make my own phone. And I talked to someone about this, and like, well, there's plenty of people who will white label a phone and just let Musk slap his logo on it. But the problem is, as I pointed out to this person, there's admin, there's marketing, there's shipping and customs, there is who's going to sell, like who's going to buy, what retailer is going to sell the phone? Are you going to sell the phone directly? Okay, if you're going to sell the phone directly, then you have to have a distribution network. You have to have a shipping deal, right? Because right now, Musk doesn't sell any retail products, right? So he has to build out all the infrastructure to sell a retail product.
Yeah, he's got
and he has no money.
Apparatus.
All he has is paper money. He does not have cash liquidity, which means he has to go back to the banks, go back to investors and say, I'm going to put up more shares of my Tesla stock as collateral for this deal, which then drives down the value of his Tesla stock because all of a sudden a bunch of people are like, you could lose a lot of this stock. And if you lose it, the people who get it are going to want to unload it immediately. Mm-hmm. And if they unload it immediately, then the price is going to go down. So I'm going to build in that potential price decline into the current market price. And I want to point out, this is on top of the fact that Tesla is all debt as it is. They have a market cap of $580 billion.
Speaking of Tesla and Musk making a phone, I would love to see the demo for his phone, if he made a phone. Because he would have a phone and he'd have a hammer. And he'd go, the phone screen won't break, and then he'd hit it, and it would look like the original iPhone met some tile floor.
Right. No, I mean he's never done a retail product. This is insanity. And the thing is, he's trying everything he can to find new stuff. As Brian pointed out, this whole this Neuralink thing that he wants to build, like this brain to machine interface. The problem is that he's not pointing out, and they obviously did this in a country where such things were legal. They implanted something like 700 monkeys, 700 chimpanzees with this Neuralink thing. So they put a chip in their brain, right? And they tried to have the chip and their brain link up to control things. Well, first off, 300 of them just died outright. Like they turned it on and monkey went down. Coco dropped then and there. No kitten petting, no nothing, no sign language, just boom, dead. Then they had a bunch that when they turned it on, they went completely fucking insane, right? However the chip interacted with their neurology, they had them eating their own hands. Literally, eating their own hands.
You know,
And they want to put this in your brain.
This week we saw the news about the the San Francisco police getting approved for lethal robots,
Yeah.
and now we have the monkeys. It's like none of these motherfuckers have ever watched a movie. Like, it's just amazing.
They want to chip they're trying, and they show this one successful video of one successful test subject who hasn't gone insane, and it's the monkey asking for snacks. They don't show the piles of dead primates caused by these experiments, because I'm surprised PETA. Yeah, PETA, listen, you want to go get angry at someone? For once, I will support you doing awful things to a company. There we go, PETA. We're finally on the same side.
These people haven't watched a movie or South Park, according to Olivia's comment. So the last thing on your list, my man, before we get to drink the first beer, and I admitted I had a hand in this being a long one. You've got the old China protest thing. You know, I'm kind of to blame for this one getting squeezed in, because I was picking David's brain this week, last week, whenever the fuck. I was like, I don't understand why China needs to have such a hardcore COVID policy. They live in a country where they could just force everyone to be vaccinated, like literally. You know,
Yeah.
all the Republican fucking swine here in the U.S. like, oh, I'm being forced to be vaccinated. No, you're being forced to make good decisions. If you choose to make bad decisions, you just might not have a job. Fuck off. In China, they could literally kidnap you, hold you down, and inject your ass and dump you on the sidewalk, not even near your home. And it would be perfectly legal and relatively normal. So I was like, David, why do they even need to do this bullshit? And then he set me straight when he reminded me to quit thinking of them as people.
Yeah. In China, these are not people. Whether or not they're vaccinated or not makes no difference to the Chinese Central Committee. To the Chinese Central Committee, they are simply a part of a whole machine. It's a malfunctioning component. It's rather like how, the Koch brothers, I refuse to use their real name, view their employees, or how, ICANN views the employees of the dozens of companies that he owns. They aren't people. They are industrial components. Mm-hmm. And part of how the Chinese Central Committee views the whole of China and its people is that, okay, a component isn't functioning right. Well, you just simply you either isolate that component until you can fix it, or you just simply remove the component. Right? Look at how they look at the Uyghur population in Western China. The Uyghur population is malfunctioning. Well, we just simply remove the component. Either we put them in camps and they learn to behave appropriately, as we want them to, and we can use whatever methods we deem appropriate, or we just simply dispose of it as a useless component. It's how in their minds they can address these issues, and they for the most part they're fairly egalitarian in how they view this process, at least in terms of race, the various races and cultures in China. There are those that they target more, like the Tibetans, and they view that as having reasons, not from our perspective, not good ones, but they are reasons. But for them, these are malfunctioning components. You have been given an instruction, shelter in place, and we'll take care of you because we need you to function as a component. These people, however, are like, but we keep on losing money. We keep on, we're not progressing in life. These lockdowns are not helpful.
Think and have feelings. Oh,
right. And as a result, now you have mass protests across China. The other day, as someone pointed out,
I mean, until recently, they apparently cracked down on all of it.
Well, I mean, but they're still there. All reports are that the protests are still in effect. They've been cracking down. The problem is the crackdowns aren't working.
I hope that's the case because I would love to see shit change, but that's a
Well, I mean, I think the main change is if they can keep the pressure up, they might convince enough members of the Central Committee that their decision to give Xi a third term was not the right one, and that would the thing that's kept Chinese authoritarianism in check for the past 20 years has been the fact that, all right, I served 2 terms as chairman of the party and head of the military council, and then I stepped down. Xi has violated that idea. Xi built up a power base and built up a narrative to basically make himself dictator for life.
And that has been a refrain of the protest: is we reject leaders for life. We don't want leaders for life.
Exactly. And the problem is that now Xi has set up this situation in which that check against raw authoritarianism. Even Deng Xiaoping understood that there were limits to how authoritarian he could be without triggering problems like what happened in the Soviet Union. And every Chinese leader that followed him said, we need to remember this. We have to have a cycle of power, right? I am going to leave after 2 terms. Xi has violated this, and now, because of his actions on the crackdown, he's further endangering this in his quest for total control. And a lot of people, look around and like, Xi, why do you want this if you believe so much in China? And basically, in a lot of ways, the problem is what Xi wants for China is actually incredibly dangerous. Not for all of us, but for China. Because what Xi wants is Xi thinks Xi is an actual, I think, in secret, an actual honest-to-God Maoist. And he is not a capitalist. What Xi keeps on coming back to, and what he's promoted during his time as president, has been the origins of the Chinese Revolution, right? Look at why the Communist Party was born. Look at all these things. We were for the workers. We're for and going through and being very pointed in his attacks on several people and several groups that have gained a great deal of economic success from China's economic rise. I think he's an actual honest-to-God Maoist, and I think he wants to break capitalism in China. And I think
this interesting ego ride into history.
And I think that he sees himself as the new Mao. And I think that part of him seeing himself as the new Mao is launching these authoritarian maneuvers like, hey, we're going to crack down again. Now, is he going to abandon capitalism entirely? No. I mean, he likes money. He likes power. He sees himself as a better Maoist than Mao. But would he be setting China up for another Great Leap Forward tragedy? Which, for those of you who aren't familiar with that event, 60 million, probably more, Chinese died when Mao pulled farmers off their farms and demanded collectivization and industrialization. And China hit a massive famine, and tens of millions of Chinese died from hunger. I think he's trying to set up China for his new version of a Great Leap Forward. He's even said publicly he's not interested in trying to beat the U.S. economically anymore. He's not interested in the U.S. interested in China overtaking the U.S. in GDP. And I think it's because he's a true Maoist. And I think he's going to try and enforce some sort of utopian party discipline on the country. And I think it's going. I don't know how it's going to respond. I think we're starting to see how it would respond, because a lot of people have done very well with China's move towards a free market capitalist system. It has a lot of flaws, as capitalist systems do, Ours is a prime freaking example. Hello, railroads. But I think that at least from where they were to where they are now, so many more people have succeeded. I imagine that China is headed for some very, 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 very rough times unless the Central Committee can find its testicles again and stand up to Xi and say, we tried the dictator thing. We actually had to put in a new dictator to remove the damage done by the previous one. We don't want to have to
game again.
Yeah, we don't want to play this game again.
Well, let's see how it works out. I think this is a good time to drink on that light, uplifting outlook.
Right?
So this is the part of the show where we talk to you about the beer that's talking to us. It's called What You Drinking? Who's first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, you can go first. I'm going to pour this out.
I'll go first. I've been sipping on an old standby, really. So in honor of Georgia's runoff, I decided to crack open one of my Terrapin Hopsecutioner IPAs, which, I mean, most people have seen these. I'm actually not sure. I need to check and see. I think they're up here as well. So 6 variety of hops, and the thing that I find interesting about this...
Translation, we got bored.
Yeah, right. The thing I find interesting about this every time I drink it is it's sweeter than most IPAs. That's the thing that I don't normally find an IPA to be sweet, but whatever it is that they've done with the balance of these hops, it comes out with kind of a sweet. There's a sugariness going on among them. I don't know which one of the hops or if it's a combo that does that, but that's the thing that strikes me the most about it. It was also a good one to lay back and ease in with, because my closer for the evening is a dessert beer that's got some oomph. But this is a 7.3, so it's not a baby beer, but it's very good. It's a renowned, beloved classic. So. Nothing negative to say about it, and of course it got its name because it's a killer IPA. Anyway, so cheers, good stuff, kind of sweet. It's a nice little sipper.
All right.
So you, sir.
I'm trying this one for the first time, and I want to explain all my beers tonight. My 2 beer choices have a purpose behind them. And one of the things that we don't talk about as much when we're on the show talking about beer is about what a white boy club it can be. I mean, we're 2 white guys sitting here talking about beer. Beer has traditionally been viewed as a white working man's drink. And a lot of people get excluded from that picture. And so it caught my eye, the fact that they wanted to, when I was looking for along the shelves, it caught my eye that they wanted to put the name of the head brewer on. Let's see if it'll focus in there.
Your camera never likes close-ups.
It doesn't. I don't know if you can see that. It says head brewer Rachel Howard. And so it caught my eye, and I thought to myself, why would you put? Oh, I know why you put the head brewer's name on there, because she's a woman.
Aren't that?
And I want to point out just a slight David's time machine moment. Traditionally, beer in most of our history, beer was brewed by women. Beer was viewed as a woman's work. It wasn't until beer began to become commercialized and we began to have these big breweries that all of a sudden, well, it's business now and therefore a man's province. And therefore, women who were these what they were called alewives, who would make their own beer and sell their own beer in their communities, were forced out. And to me, it is a good sign that this Nos Brewing Project, they have made a point of having a woman be their head brewer. And my next beer has other social justice implications as well. But I have this Desiderium, which, by the way, Desiderium is the Catholic idea of internal sin. that one may commit sin outwardly through action, but may also commit sin through thought. So I thought that was in this context. I'm like, that's an interesting commentary with your name there. And I also have this, which also, again, when you think about it in this context, it is an interesting name. This is my other one that I got from them, which is a Czech-style dark lager called Death by Nostalgia, which is also by the same head brewer.
You said Rachel Howard, right?
Yeah.
She's got a great Instagram. I was just flipping through that when you gave the name. I decided to look her up. I really think people should check out at Bibs Boots in Beer. The letter N. Bibs as in babies, boots as in cowboys, letter N, beer. It is one of the most colorful, variety-laden, beer-oriented Instagram. Holy God, what is that fat kid glory? Thicker than a Snicker. Imperial Stout Ale with Snickers, Gitterelli Caramel, Hershey's Chocolate Syrup, peanuts, vanilla. So apparently she's with Ouzel Finch Beers now, which is also probably worth checking out because beers are the beer. I mean, I think people should go and check out this lady brewer for sure. And it is big news whenever you have a brewery or master head brewer, whatever, in a category like a black-owned brewery, like back when in June when we did the show with Live Spot in Chicago. There's always a first black-owned brewery in a space, which I think is great. And then women in the brewing industry, you're right, it's a stereotype that's not a thing when it really used to be a thing. But definitely check out Rachel Howard's work. It looks really interesting.
And I want to show you like the epic head on this beer. This is very impressive. And it's holding. And I got to say, for a double imperial, it is very smooth. It has a nice citrus note. But what's surprising is it also has a malt note to it, which you don't normally get in an IPA. And you can even see I've got foam stash.
Well, it's 8.1%, so it's not like it's like a serious wallop, but it's a big grown-up beer.
Yeah, this is again my favorite catchphrase. Let the yeast do its job. They let the yeast do its job, and it created it. It isn't a lot of IPAs attack with their bitterness. This is not attacking with the bitterness. It's what like that little malt note is combining to create a very smooth transition that I'm really enjoying. And you can tell, like, I really like a lot of carbonation in my beer. And you can tell, like, it's still got fast bubbles going from when I poured it. So,
well, and I mean, it's he actually may work for both of these, Ouzel Finch as well as the one that you have.
Yeah, I get the impression that this is a pop-up project. That's why they called it a project, that this is a pop-up collaboration.
Yeah, maybe. It's interesting.
But, man, like, this foam is thick. This is like Belgian level foam.
That's really cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, David,
on to Lucas's pet.
No, remember.
Oh, no, we're going to the main, aren't we?
We do the big topic now in the middle of the show so that most people get to see it, because we have found out that only the true believers are sticking around for that last part, and we don't want people to miss out on the big discussion. But before we can go to that, David, I have an important variable, and then we're going to go to the... Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to Brian's contribution first, because it makes more thematic sense. So our man Brian always joins in with a little treat of his own when we take these breaks. And, of course, if you're looking down below, you know what's coming. So Brian's coming at us tonight. Although his descriptions get so big that they cover up the graphic every time. So Brian is not as much of a liquid refreshment guy, but he is of the aromatic variety. So Skunk Ape, I love it, 20% THC, which is not my usual potency, he says. Topping it with some hybrid keef, nice thick coat of it. key for the uninitiated, I hope I'm saying that right, because I am the uninitiated, is basically THC dust and aggressively ramps up the trichome count. That's cool. In the words of Ric Flair, woo! I love it. So usually, David, when you get into Brian's treats, you end up needing to get into a lot of other treats, right? You get the munchies. And recently in our household, something was discovered that's a true abomination. And I have never had this much of a negative experience before. I did a double take when I saw it in the cabinet.
Suspiciously looking.
It got open, and everyone else in the house tried it and decided that it was completely wretched, but they weren't sure if it wasn't just them. At Aldi, you can obtain beer-flavored potato chips. And this is one of the worst things I've ever fucking tasted in my entire life. I've never met a potato chip of any variety that I ate and then just walked right the fuck back in the kitchen and put them away. I'm going to get the smallest one I can possibly get and still taste it, just so I can try to describe the fucking terror. God. There's nothing redeemable involved in this experience. What's bad is we're about to throw these away, and I feel like a piece of shit because down the street that we live on, there are plenty of homeless folks or unhoused folks or however people that don't deserve to be on the fucking street. That's what I look at it. And I want to bag these up and be like, hey, free snacks, but I feel like I would be the asshole. I feel like I'm less of an asshole throwing these away than giving them to the unhoused in Michigan. Let that be a metric. Between the choice of sharing these with another human being who has no home and is in Michigan living on the streets in the winter, I feel like less of a piece of shit if I throw these away. I don't know how to... So, God damn it. At the beginning...
He's going back again. Look at the face. Oh, it's so beautiful.
You know the residue in the bottom of the peanut can?
Yeah.
It's mostly flakes of skin of peanut.
Yeah.
That's the first taste. And at the end, it's like dirty vinegar. I don't know, like malt vinegar, but not good.
So descriptive.
And I don't know, the sick fuck that came up with this idea, like, there's plenty of crazy shit. There's bacon vodka. There's all sorts of crazy infused shit out there, but
bacon and banana vodka, the Elvis
here,
combo.
these are vile. Take them. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
few things warm my heart more than watching Lucas suffer.
I want to say that these chips were flavor designed by someone who hates beer, because I feel like these taste like what a 9-year-old thinks beer tastes like. Like if you were like me and your parents were like 60s and 70s kids, you know, and like your dad says, "You think beer is interesting? Here, I'll give you a sip of it, you little whippersnapper," and you're like, bleh! You know, because kids don't like beer. The idea that kids like beer is completely fucked. Like teenagers that go sneak beer, they're just doing it because of the drug part, not the beer part. But the person that came up with this, or the team of people, hates beer. And they think beer tastes terrible, and they made sure that this met that bar. Because, holy shit, this is one of the worst fucking things I've ever encountered. So, there you go. Don't buy the Clancy's beer-flavored potato chips at Aldi. They didn't even have the decency to make them out of a good beer. I feel like to get this terrible taste out of my mouth, I could probably go get a Budweiser and improve the situation. That's how wretched we're at right now.
All right, I'm about to send you an image.
Oh God, why?
Hold on 1 second. Speaking of awful things.
Oh God. Am I supposed to share this with the world?
Yes, you should.
Don't make me share this with the world. I don't want to share this with the world. If you think it's awful, then it's got to be truly terrible.
Hold on. I'm going to see if will private chat let me send a photo to you.
Oh, I don't know. You can text me if you need to. I'm going to jump into the big story, if I can come back to your image. I'm gonna... So the Oath Keepers. So in case you've been living under a rock, you know that David and I, we once in a while we loop back to the insurrection as a topic. These pieces of shit, led by that fucking Stewart Rhodes asshole, they've been in their trial with various charges, and sedition actually got successfully proven.
Clarification: seditious conspiracy.
Seditious conspiracy. So the jury convicted 2 of the leaders, and this is a far-right militia. Seditious conspiracy, plotting to forcibly oppose the government. It's a big deal. And it hasn't been done in decades.
It hasn't. And let me read for you all really quick. That's what I've been over here looking up the statute explicitly. So section 2384. If 2 or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States, contrary to the authority thereof, they shall each be fined under this title or imprisoned for not more than 20 years or both.
Yeah. So Stewart Rhodes and Kelly Meggs, those are the 2 out of the, I think, 5 of them. And then there were, let's see, this Jessica Watkins chick and Kenneth Harrelson and Thomas Caldwell, which also were convicted of other things. I forgot what the list is, but you know, the big thing that apparently did him in was the recorded statement of him saying we should have brought our guns. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but we should have brought our guns. Elmer's going to jail. I love it, Brian. Thank you. I mean, this motherfucker, like, it's just so it's nice, but it's not, because there should be so many more of them convicted of this same crime. There were hundreds of people that are guilty of the same thing that were present that day. I mean, let's be real about it. But it's satisfying to see some of it. I don't know that convictions deter these motherfuckers, and I'm curious what you think of that, because, you know, you actually went to college and got a degree about the justice system and how deterrents work. I just don't think that all these crazy fucking shitbags waiting in the wings, I don't think they're that deterred by seeing somebody go down. I think most of them just look at it and go, he was right. We should bring guns next time.
So here's how I look at it, which is the vast majority, and this is one of the points that I like to make about the differences between peacekeeping and peace enforcement, which is another one of my favorite topics. The vast majority of people don't want to get into trouble, right? They don't want trouble. The only thing that compels people to typically ignore a law, and I used this example the other day, like one of the classic examples in U.S. history is Prohibition, right? A bunch of people said, but I really like alcohol. And now you're telling me I can't have it. And that kind of annoys me to the point where this is what I do on Friday night. I go to the bar and I get a beer, or I go home and sit with friends on the porch, or, I do whatever, and we have alcohol. Wine, beer, whiskey, whatever, right? Now, it's true, in the lead up to Prohibition, America did have a drinking problem, and that had a lot to do with something that I'm getting ready to teach my servers, which is the history of spirits, because most people don't realize that liquor is actually not that old. It's only been a few centuries that we've had liquor. For most of our history, we've had beer, or wine. Liquor is actually, there's a reason it's called a spirit. It was because they considered it the distillation of the essence of whatever. But a lot of people looked around and said, "Oh, no, I really like alcohol. I'm going to ignore this." And in the course of ignoring this, I'm going to develop a healthy disrespect for all laws in the United States, because if I violate one, I'll just keep on violating others. But for the most part, when people don't want to get in trouble, and when a law seems reasonable in their minds, they obey it. Now, there are outliers, obviously, and there are things like economic factors, right? For instance, if you look at why would an African-American community be more prone to engage in illegal activities than, say, a white community? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is economic opportunities. Another is, well, if the police are already going to screw me over, why not, again, that disrespect for law, right? If obeying by the law doesn't do me any good, I'm still going to get arrested or pulled over or shot, regardless of whether or not I'm obeying the law or not. Might as well break the law.
Well, it's a lot similar to how, I've railed over the years about the way that we designed public housing projects to resemble institutionalized spaces. They look like fucking prisons. How can you take a person from street to prison and be surprised they made that choice? Really, the difference is mild.
Right.
I mean, but if you're in a situation that's so shitty, the shitty alternative is not as shitty, and right. That figures right in. But that still doesn't explain why these people would actually be deterred, though, David.
So let me finish. So if you're generally benefiting from a society in which laws are enforced, you're generally going to want to go along with those laws, which is why peacekeeping in many instances is a better alternative than peace enforcement, because you don't need to enforce the peace unless something else is already going on. For most people, however, if they see someone break the law and then they see them get punished, that is a very big deterrent in, okay, wait a second. I thought I could get away with that, and I really can't. So there's going to be consequences to my actions. It's sort of like murder, right? Killing people in any capacity, right? Crimes of passion in the United States are especially deadly ones, are made more common because we have more guns. But crimes of passion happen with similar regularity in most other countries. The difference is, again, because there's not as many guns, there's not as many fatalities. But premeditation is something in our society these days which is almost unheard of, right? It's a big deal if someone gets charged with first-degree murder, which means you thought about killing that person, you prepared to kill that person, and then you killed that person.
Yeah.
And the reason is because most people realize, okay, wait a second, I really dislike that guy, and I want to kill him. But if I do, I'm going to go to prison or be executed, which we shouldn't do, by the way. But anyway, back to the other side. It's my philosophy of law generally is, and this is going to sound rough, but it's meant to drop the bodies, right?
Yeah, right.
When you start dropping bodies, then people start paying attention. They're like, "Uh-oh, that could be me next."
Yeah, that was the extent of your legal advice to me a few times. So, yeah, he lives by that mantra for sure. I think these people are still nuts enough, though, David, that I don't know if they're going to be deterred. And here's why I think that. They think that the whole system is flawed and corrupt. And these are the same people that imagine that the day they have to finally overthrow the government, what's going to happen is that a majority of the armed services and law enforcement services are going to be on their side, or they're going to see the patriotic issue at hand and heed the call of, the great George Washington Jesus in the sky in their imagination or whatever. I don't know if these people are reasonable enough to apply these.
I don't think they actually believe that anymore. And I think the I don't think they ever actually believed that. I think that was a story that they told themselves, and that consistently, and thus far, for the most part, with the exception of certain segments of rural law enforcement, but
And a handful of the Capitol Police that just pulled the barricades aside.
There's a YouTube commentator on one of my favorite YouTube channels called Alt History Hub, right? And for the most part, Alt History Hub is dominated by this one guy who is very sensible. He does not let on openly his political leanings. I strongly suspect he's at the very worst middle of the road, probably a little leftist. But he also shares the channel with other people who like to do what if scenarios for history. And one of them is this guy named Mr. Monsieur. And Mr. Monsieur is a right winger. And it was on January 8th, he posted a video. And he had been of that your same idea, right? Oh, if we do this, the police and military will rise up with us, and we'll do that. And January 6th happened, and he posted a video. He's like, I was so very, very wrong. We're idiots. He's like, look at the George Floyd protests and how they were able to sustain, the left, from his perspective, were able to sustain them, keep them organized, generally, and he had to admit, generally keep them from devolving into violence. They didn't shoot their shot too soon. Were there instances of violence? Yes, he admitted that, and we can all admit that there were instances of violence. But for the per capita, right, the amount of violence that happened compared to how many people were involved in those protests was
the average
minuscule.
University of Tennessee football victory.
Right. I mean, we're not dealing with widespread rebellion. He said, I watched what they did on January 6th, and I realized we would lose. And he said, the police didn't help us. I mean, he's like, some may have, but they did what they were supposed to do, which was tried to do what they were supposed to do, which is stop us from entering the building, and we didn't win them over. Right? We didn't think about how we were going to talk those police onto our side. We just ran them over and beat or attacked them. He's like, we weren't organized about this at all. He's like, and it's true. If they had really organized and been able to really organize and think about this, they could have seized the Capitol. They could have seized the electoral ballots. They could have seized Congress. By all rights, if they had just like a fraction more organization than they did, they should have. But they didn't, and they couldn't. And he's like, this is how I know we're going to lose. We had everything going in our favor. Every opportunity to organize. Every opportunity to come together and think out a plan and enact a plan, and we couldn't do it.
And
we should have been able to waltz. He's like, we should have been able to waltz if our thinking, from this guy's Mr. Monsieur's perspective, if our thinking about this was correct, we should have been able to waltz into the Capitol, seize Congress, and seize the ballots. And we couldn't.
It reminds me again why we don't execute traitors anymore. Because, I mean, on one hand, it would be very satisfying as our show graphic, because a little hangman graphic. But
mostly because the reason is most of the people we've had who have been proven traitors are held for trade with the Russians.
Wow.
So most of the people who've committed treason, think people like Perlman, we traded him back to the Israelis.
Yeah,
because they're our allies, right? That's why we had one of their people in prison for 20 years for selling our entire Pacific naval defense strategy. Yeah, because the Israelis are our fucking allies. That we send a shit ton of money to. We continue to send them a shit ton of money, even after their intelligence service tried to sell our naval defense strategy. Great allies there.
That makes us suckers, but
yeah, it really does. but I mean, we hold most of those guys for trade. Like Perlman, we traded back to the Israelis for some stuff. We've held a bunch of Russians that we've traded back to them, like people who've betrayed the United States.
Trade Rhodes out. We should trade Rhodes to the like Muslimist, dark-skinnest place we could find for his ass. I think it would be.
But the thing is, they're not the ones who paid him. The reason we hold
him, but it'd be still really.
The reason we hold people like Hansen and all the rest of these guys who took money from the Russians is it's in the Russian interest to trade for these guys and get them out of prison.
Yeah,
right. Because that way, when they approach
Rhodes, it would just be hilarious to send him off to some place where he would hate it. Oh boy. Anyway, the charges went as follows. There was seditious conspiracy. Rhodes and Meggs were guilty. Conspiracy to obstructing an official proceeding. Conspiracy to prevent an officer from discharging any duties. Destruction of government property. Civil disorder and aiding and abetting. And then 4 different counts of tampering with documents, and most of the crew was guilty of all of those things. So,
and I want to come back to something else you said about, like, is this going to deter them? I just want to come back to one point. The vast majority of the Oath Keepers are fanboys, right? These are not guys who actually are going to, like, they like to parade around in their tactical gear, and their customized, $4,000 AR-15 that they hang proudly in their trailer park, or their completely safe suburban community, where they have no need to have such a weapon. But most of these guys are in this for like a social club, right? This is their like version of like hanging out and having a beer and finding like a cool club to join. And then there's, for a portion of that, there's more radicalization that occurs, right? Where they convince them to go off and be like, oh, yeah, we're going to go fight the government. The Boogaloo Boys are very much the same way. It's one of the reasons why they're the Boogaloo Boys are so decentralized, much more so than the Oath Keepers, is because the Boogaloo you get a guy in your community who's like, I fucking hate the government. I fucking hate the government too. I like wearing Hawaiian shirts. I like wearing Hawaiian shirts too. I like wearing tactical vests over my Hawaiian shirt. I like wearing tactical vests over my Hawaiian shirt too. Let's have a beer and stand around with our guns. Okay. I mean, they're social groups, right? It's what they really are. And all of a sudden, when belonging to that social group also involve, and like sometimes you'll be like, yeah, I want to go show up like at this march with my gun, like with the rest of my friends, right? When all of a sudden some of those friends are like,
libs together.
I got arrested and I'm going to prison for 5 years for being a dick-faced traitor.
Don't do Hank Hill like that.
Even Hank Hill didn't like malicious. I want to point that out.
It's funny though. You could really just kind of translate those guys. The King of the Hill.
They really could. I mean, in many ways, it's the same thing. And when all of a sudden one of those guys is going up to prison for being part of your social group, your little social club, because he actually tried to go overthrow the government, that's going to give you serious pause about, maybe I need to find new friends.
Well, I hope it sticks. I hope it makes some people think again, and makes even more awareness of this fucking traitor stripe that we've had in the Trumpism side of the
it's the truth is this isn't even Trumpism. Trump just gave it license. Remember, in your state was the home of the Michigan 51st, right? The militia that bombed Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the whole, trying to kidnap the governor thing.
And then trying to kidnap the governor.
That worked out great, didn't it? We got reelected, and we got 3 great liberal amendments. Fuck you!
The mitten busily looks at the Yoopers being like, can we just saw it off?
Actually, I don't think they're from there. I think they're from a little bit of all over.
Yeah, I know, but
Not a city. That's the
If-
the way to know that in Michigan is in a city. No, okay then. That's really how that goes. David, let's have
but I
another
mean,
beer.
oh god, I haven't. Okay, well, this one's going to be in a can because I haven't finished my first one. But okay.
Oh. He speeds through the first part, and I'm over here like trying to time it out. Now I'm ready, and you're not. But that's okay. Like it or not.
I'm in a can. I got to show off the can.
Good. Because it's time for another round.
My turn.
You first? You first? Really first? Okay, you can be first.
So, this is, again, my focus is not going to be great. One of my goals is to buy a new camera that's going to do better on focusing. So, this says Rule 0000001, don't be mean to people. A golden rule saison. And they classify this, and this is one of the reasons I bought it, because I'm like, I would be interested in this. This is a North Carolina farmhouse ale. They call it a North Carolina farmhouse ale. I'm like,
that's specific.
That is specific. Also different. Want to talk to these people about what they got. But what's cool about this, and again, like I told you all at the beginning, I have a theme to my beers tonight. So my first beer was about underrepresented people in beer, which first of all, women as brewmasters. But one of the rules that Ponysaurus Brewing Company, which I want to clarify, I'm also experimenting with this a little because the last time I had Ponysaurus, it was meh. There was nothing really interesting about it. I'm hoping that they do better with this, but even if they don't, portion of every one of these beers goes to Equality North Carolina and Q-Ward's LGBTQ summer camp programs with every beer that with every one of these that gets sold. So again, a group of people who doesn't often get because again, this is beer is primarily a bunch of working class white dudes. Gay people don't get represented very well in beer culture very often, and part of the reason I chose these two beers tonight, one by a woman head brewer, and this one that goes to supporting LGBTQ summer camps, is because we should be talking about including those people in beer culture. So I'm going to try this North Carolina farmhouse ale.
I want to read the description while you do that. Ponysaurus Brewing is a forward-thinking, backward-tasting brewery, creating beers that are meant to be savored, appreciated, contemplated, philosophized, studied, nuzzled, and mindfully guzzled. I love the little piece of poetry there.
And I gotta say, from my last outing with Ponysaurus, I'm pleasantly surprised by this one. This has a lot of really good farmhouse saison flavor.
It's a 6.8, so it's right around the correct mark for.
It's got that really.
Why is it North Carolina though?
I'm gonna say it has a little bit more citrus. If they wanted to clarify a reason why this is not like a typical farmhouse saison, I'm gonna say it has a lot more citrus in the flavor than I would normally find from a farmhouse saison. I have to say this might be the ultimate mowing the lawn beer.
Well, that's funny because apparently it's seasonal to the winter. Maybe it might not be.
Hey Lucas. There's this thing called the refrigerator. You can put it in there, and then come summer.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm just looking at the way that people have reviewed it, and there's talk of it as a holiday beer. And
Here's the thing. I never approached farmhouse saisons. I know traditionally that's when they would be presented is in winter.
I feel like I've had more of them in the not cold months, though.
Right? I mean, here's the thing. Coming from the South, this flavor, I want in the summer because it's super refreshing.
Yeah.
This has a little bit more citrus in the flavor. It's not as it's a lot more mild in the wheat than a lot of farmhouses that I've had. Like there isn't that sort of weedy
Okay.
as much of it.
I might like that because I got so burnt out on wheat/farmhouse in my earlier beer days. Like I overdid it, and then I was like, no, meh. And
I mean,
even now, I'm only moderately excited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way, and like the thing is, like they'll still be like most of the time when I'm picking a farmhouse saison, it's because I'm like, I want those bubbles, I want those big, big, mean bubbles, but this is it's very approachable, like it's super refreshing. And I gotta say, so the two beer, like of the three beers that I've had this tonight, I have my like standby like guzzler over here, which is this Black Abbey Tannenbaum Schwartz beer, and I've got this double IPA, Imperial IPA over here, and it's doing a pretty good job of being like, no, your palate has been completely fucked this evening. I don't care. I have big flavors, but enough to where it walks in and says, I'm here, I'm in charge, but without seeming it's like that effortlessly hot girl that walks into a room and it's just like, yeah, I'm wearing like, a tank top and sweats and didn't do anything, but I'm just gonna sit here and be cool.
Right.
It is.
Your beer is the chick that everybody hates, is what you're saying. Or that all the other chicks hate.
Right? All the other guys are like, huh? Oh, not interesting.
Oh, boy.
But no, it's out of Durham, which I like. And again, like these seem like very good, straightforward people.
Well, it's good beer country down there, so it's nice to see that, and then the tie-in to the socially progressive aims. That's cool. Well, you know what my closer is? It's time for dessert.
Oh God, what fat kid specialty have you?
Oh my God, David, it's so goddamn good. So Tuesday, I had a meeting over at the Mitten, and I went looking for everything that's new or seasonal, and did that in a flight. And this one was at the end because it is dark. And this is the Imperial Peanuts and Cracker Jack, which is a variant of their normal Peanuts and Cracker Jack order. I was just sitting there having the meeting, going through the beers, and I got to this one at the end of the flight. And this is someone who hasn't drank with me before, so they were a little bit caught off guard by the face. Because I was just like, oh yeah. And so I took home a pint, which they'll make you a pint in a little sealable crowler, mini crowler. And it was perfect because 2 days ago it would be ready. It would be fine. It wouldn't be too far along for tonight. So it's just so damn good. It makes up for those goddamn chips. So you might guess that it tastes like peanut Cracker Jack. So the funny thing is, in the brewery, in a glass that sat and got a little warmer because it was the 6th in line on a little flight, the corniness came out. The popcorn part came out a lot. Here in the can, just literally open, you heard it crack. Like, it's very freshly open and still quite cold. The front's definitely peanut butter as fuck, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. See, what I'm going to say, actually, what's happening
in the middle, the salty comes in the middle no matter what, but that heavy roasty corn thing doesn't settle in the same way. It stays more bright.
Yeah, because what's happening is the beer warms the ester. I'm guessing that the corn flavor they actually are treating as an ester, because it's probably leftover malt or wort that's relying on that. So as it warms up, they're leaving that in there to bring that flavor in, but as it warms up, it's giving off more of what they would consider an ester, which is why when it's cold, you don't taste it as much. It's sort of like with that Tailgate West Coast IPA, the third. Like if you drink it cold, it has a very clear IPA flavor, but if you let it warm up, it becomes a very obvious Belgian double, is because that yeast flavor that's bringing in the Belgian flavor is they're treating as an ester when they're brewing it.
The salty thing just really blows my mind. Like when I lick my lips, I get the salt back. Like it's.
I'm not gonna lie, they probably just dump salt in.
They could.
That's what I would do. Like if I were brewing that, it'd be like, I'm just gonna add some salt.
This thing is 11.8%, which puts it, it's dark, it's desserty, and it's high alcohol. Those are the ways to win my heart typically. Double the peanut, double the fun. Imperial P and CJ is chock full of peanuts, peanut butter with a kiss of caramel. Perfect cold weather warmer. That is an accurate description. It is loved on Untapped. It's a 4.27 average rating. So
I was kind of surprised, but this Farmhouse Saison that I'm about to drive into as soon as I finish this double IPA, it got a pretty high rating too on Untapped. I was impressed by it.
Yeah, let me pull that one back up because I totally forgot to talk ratings. I've been trying to get better about talking ratings.
Yeah, we need to start linking our beers in the comments.
Yeah, we're bad about the clerical shit.
We are. We like, for those of you who don't know us, I will do spreadsheets all day long. Lucas will do budgets all day long. But when it comes to actually like doing clerical stuff on our free time, we're just sort of like,
3.74. That's a pretty good standing. It's a lot of ratings. It has 10 times as many ratings. This mitten here, and of course it's not out all the time, so it's not going to get as many ratings. But it's like 600 and something ratings, and your Don't Be Mean is 6,000 rating with an average of 3.74. Mine's a very targeted 4 point whatever, and yours is a very justified 3.7. So yeah, good stuff all around. Get it while you can. Won't be there forever, not in regular cans for sale necessarily. Definitely available for your growler and can fill-ups. So David, I know it's not the topic you chose, but it's the topic you deserve.
You know what? I'm going to make you rue this topic.
So I threw this in here. Iran. I'm just not going to say Iran because that's what they want me to say, so fuck them.
Lol, what?
So apparently there was this whole fucking flat. So basically, by way of the World Cup, the cunty lords and masters that make up the power and government in Iran, the woman oppressing, murderous, torturing pieces of shit that run the place. They've been using the World Cup essentially as a proxy war, which is why I was so happy that the team got.
Really? Have they though? I don't really see that, because here's the problem: the Iranian national team refused to sing the national anthem, and they said they did so explicitly in solidarity with the anti-government protesters.
Correct. The team is on our side. The nation that sent them there is run by
the government that sent them there.
Nation, government, whichever. It's not the people. The nation and the people are not synonymous.
Actually, that's exactly what they are. Government and nation are two separate things.
They got all butthurt because somebody removed that Islamic fucking trash that they added to the flag when they represented the flag in some soccer stats, which for me was kind of stupid because it's like, it's an icon. I mean, if you have an icon of the United States flag and you just make it a blue rectangle or a blue square, with no stars in it, I'm gonna give you a pass because it's fucking this big. Fuck you.
Although sometimes it might be the flag of Malaysia. I just want to point that out. Or Liberia.
But but anyway, the reason our show graphic tonight features a very amateurish squiggling of paintbrush over all the fucking Allah shit that they put on the flag is because fuck them. And that was the reason I wanted to talk about it, because I find it so interestingly petty that a nation's government, there you go, David. See, I made them kind of separate.
There we go.
Is actually being questioned if they're going to imprison, torture, or execute the team members when they get home. I mean,
they won't. They wouldn't dare.
They seem to be.
They would not dare.
Dare a lot. So USA managed to get a 1-0 victory. Now I'm a mega amateur when it comes to football. Soccer.
It's soccer. We're doing the English a favor. The English called it soccer for hundreds of years, and then they wanted to sound more like everyone else, so they called it football, and we kept the name for them. We saved that for them all on our own over here in America, the Old English word for the game.
I mean, I just think we stole the name of a sport called football instead of calling ours egg ball or whatever the fuck it was that we should have said.
Which, surprisingly, there's a surprising lack of feet involved in American football.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't understand. Well, whatever.
No, I can actually do a very quick explanation. So the original way that soccer was played was you could use hands. Basically, rugby and in England, the game of soccer got separated at some point between rugby and what they now call football, right? So, but originally, back in the way olden days, you could pick up the ball, you could and kick it, you could do all sorts of things with the ball, and eventually, those two rules separated, and you got rugby on one hand and soccer/football on the other.
Like in soccer, can't you literally hit it with anything but hands? Isn't it essentially like...
Yeah. And again, that didn't used to be a rule.
If you have the right girthy, throbbing boner, you can just whack it with your dick. I mean,
yeah,
all
pretty
of
much.
It except hands, right?
And then the reason American football got called football was because it had some similar stuff to Old English
rugby
football, right? And then we kept on calling it the game soccer that you used your feet most of the time with, because traditionally in the old school game, the really old school game, like 1600s, it was primarily with your feet, and we called that soccer. We're like, okay, well, that's still soccer, and then we're going to call this other thing where you can pick up the ball football, because that's what we used to call football.
I had to put an addendum on my beer review. Come to this with room, because I was full from dinner when we sat down for this show, and I am now struggling. This is a motherfucker of a heavy beer.
I have what's left of my birthday dinner sitting downstairs, which is some deliciously well-cooked Mongolian-style beef.
You're probably doing things in a better order than I chose to, because...
Well, I normally do. So for those of you who don't know me, I have this really interesting reaction, which is if I eat and drink at the same time, you have never seen me fall flatter on my face drunk than if I do both at the same time. It is incredible. Like there is no sense to it. Everyone's like, oh, well, if you eat and drink at the same time, you should be better off. I'm like, no. The way my body processes things is like, oh, you've given us food and alcohol. What we should process first right now is all the alcohol all at once, so that we can get onto the food. If I just drink alcohol, it takes me a lot longer to get drunk, and then I go eat.
This guy, for as long as I've known him, it's blown me away that he wouldn't eat. I'd be like, you sure you don't want to eat? And he's like on beer 13, like, nope. Okay. And somehow it just works out with the fucked up lumberjack physiology.
It makes no sense.
I am very much impatient with piece of shit governments. I can't say enough about my hatred for, government of Israel, government of Iran, but not Iran. But there was just all sorts of fucking flap after that little graphic incident with the flag, and then it just kept growing and ballooning, and it's really pathetic when you send a team to a world championship that really shouldn't exist. Fucking World Cup, FIFA, it should all fucking be just deleted.
No, we should still have it. It just FIFA needs to be radically reformed.
Fuck it. Just dump the whole thing out and come up with something new. Global soccer championship. There, I did it. I replaced the World Cup. Problem solved. But the big thing that really got me, and we talked about gutlessness earlier, we tend to have a theme. I tend to be quicker to the shaking my fist at fucking gutless cowards than David. It takes David several more stages to get that pissed. I stay angry at gutlessness.
I moderate my hate generally.
I would say you choose your battles better. You're a Patton, and I'm a Viking. You stand around with a flag with your stick under your arm and talk to people about the right things to do and the reasons to do them. And I get
without beating shell-shocked soldiers, I should clarify.
Yeah. I'd jump off the ship and land on the dirt and go, and someone points, and I go,
See, what Lucas forgets is I'll do that too. I like when I'm doing it. There's other things going on behind the eyes.
So what really got me on this, what made me start paying attention to this was at first I was just like, wait, as a graphics guy, like, wait, you fucking cunts are pissed about what now?
Okay, can I clarify why this is a big deal for them?
Really? You realize your stupid little Muslim symbol would be a fucking dot, right? Like,
here's their issue, and if you notice,
for those out there, they're going to try to do the Bill Maher on me. He's against Muslims. I'm against religious nuts across the fucking board. So
I can get behind that. Like, and for once, like, I don't think you're doing the Bill Maher because you're actually doing so with sensibility as opposed to Bill Maher who just wants to say to be an asshole.
Says the guy that never watches the show.
I watch enough. I've watched enough Bill Maher to know that he's just a cunt. So
the reason you don't see us post a lot of Bill Maher content on our page because I know that if it gets posted, everybody knows it was me and not him. And B, we would never be able to agree on the wording to introduce it.
No, we would not. Because
I would be over here, American hero Bill Maher nails it again, and David would be like, dumb fucking twat Bill Maher says shit I don't like again, and we'd be like debating all week and nothing.
But
another dead giveaway is if there's more than one F-bomb, it was me.
But at least with why they're upset about it. So for Islamic governments, which you can, I put that in quotations because you can have a lot of variations on what you consider an Islamic government. Putting the name of Muhammad or some sort of religious script on your flag is very essential to proving that you are, like, look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has on their flag, there is, Muhammad is the prophet of Allah, or something along those lines. I forget what it actually is. Every Iraq has on its flag, Muhammad is the prophet of Allah.
Apparently, the Iranian flag is the symbol is some kind of fucking multiple curves and the sword representing blah blah blah, but then the lines are like God, 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 God. Like it's
Right. They consider it essential to proving that they are in fact a government ordained by Allah. So that's why they think about this.
the sales pitch.
This
The sales pitch that just played in
way.
my head for that was like the opening of Aladdin with the hookah.
Right. I mean, like,
Hookah and coffee maker even makes julienne fries. Won't break. It broke.
I mean, the you know, it's why, at least for an Islamic or arguably Islamic fundamentalist government, because what is Islamic fundamentalism can vary dramatically from place to place.
Almost like a bunch of madmen making shit up that they want for their own selfish and usually like violent slash.
You assume that they're insane, and that's where you hit your first pitfall.
Well, I didn't say insane. I said mad.
No, they're not mad. They're not mad. They do it for a very every step. You have to understand. Like, this is one of the things that I get sometimes into challenges
Basically,
with
it's almost
people.
like a bunch of flawed humans using religion.
Yeah, I mean, like, conservatives are making decisions. Like, yeah, well, conservatives, evangelicals, all these people make decisions based on a form of logic, and part of the challenge that people who have objective rationalism have. And I say this as opposed to quote-unquote objectivism, which is like Ayn Rand's little fucking shit, which is not objective at all, ironically. It basically calls itself the opposite of what it actually is. But, if you're being objective about something, obviously whatever this is wrong. But if you put yourself in that person's point of view where they're not being objective, and you say, okay, like if I empathize entirely with you and sit in your shoes and look out from your window, from where you're sitting, and try and understand how you come to this conclusion, I get how you come to this conclusion, right? Like, I get how you get to this place when you're thinking about things in your own brand of logic. Is your own brand of logic ridiculously wrong? Yes. And the reason it's wrong is because you need to take a step out of your seat and go sit in some other seats, right? And then you get the whole view instead of just where you're sitting in your chair looking out your window. Again, from where they're sitting, part of their legitimacy as an Islamic government comes from putting Islamic scripture on their flag.
And
I get why they're tweaked about it, especially in the midst of these protests, which basically are about the fact that one of the things that Iran has always had a problem with is that despite the fact that they are very much a majority Persian country, they have, because of their position in the middle of fucking Asia, they have a lot of ethnicities that also happen to exist within their country. They have a significant portion they have a not insignificant portion, rather, of Jews that live inside Iran, despite the fact that they are persecuted. They have a very not insignificant part of what's prompted these protests is they have a very not insignificant portion of Kurds in their country who would obviously rather not be part of their country, who would do anything to not be part of fucking Iran.
Right. But also, the whole killing young women for really stupid old man reasons.
Well, I mean, it
didn't help any on the
again,
protest
so
front.
sitting in their chair and trying to understand the world from their point of view of why they're doing it, so you understand how. This is one of the things that you and I differ on a regular basis. As I try and sit in their chair and look out their window, right, and try and understand what are you seeing that's causing this behavior, right? What makes you think that this is correct?
And that's a fair statement. A lot of times David and I will, lock horns. A lot of people don't see it when we lock horns. We do it in private, but and that's just part of our relationship. We don't hide it. We do it here. We just don't run into it as often because we don't end up talking as much random smack. But he's absolutely right. you're going to ask, what are they seeing out their window? And I'm going to ask, where can I blow that window up? Fuck 'em.
No, and the thing is, and what you have to understand is, I'm not necessarily against blowing that window up, but I want to understand what they're seeing out their window first, right? To understand why I should blow it up. So when I'm looking out their window,
For me, I'm looking for what are they seeing out their window so that I can disguise my death as that until they can't come in and die. Right.
when they're looking out their window, they're looking at this from a point of, we have some sort of very strange, fucked up obligation to protect the purity of our women from these over-sexualizing influences, like showing your hair. Like I said, I sit in their chair. It doesn't mean that when I sit in their chair, I look out and I'm like, holy shit, you are fucked up.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, but in their mind, that's what they're doing. And
like literal middle age logic of sexy. What's that, an ankle? Yeah.
Have you ever seen Iranian female police? It's really hilarious. It is really hilarious.
I don't know if I'd even thought about the fact that there could be.
Oh yes, there are Iranian female police because
female police. Oh. Oh my. How do they? What did you? Whoa! Shit! They look like RoboCop. And what the fuck? I can't. Oh my god! I can't pick one of the. Okay, hold on. Hold on. We have a feature for this. We're gonna share this because there's no way to pick this one image. God damn it, David. Here is what this man has done to me in Google. I'm gonna squeeze up this ratio so hopefully it gives people a better. Yeah, there we go. So at first, I just saw the main thing, and then I saw this. Is like, wait, is there such thing as a foot pursuit? What does that look like? Do they have like little old-timey unicycles so that they can look like the Wicked Witch in Dorothy, or in Wizard of Oz chasing Dorothy? And so then I start going through the photos, and I find this RoboCop in the shooting range shit. Like, and then I started thinking about the nuns in what was the oh fuck the movie? It's The Town. You seen The Town? It's Ben Affleck and all these other guys, and they dress up as nuns and they rob a bank or something.
oh yeah,
They look like those fucking guys. And then there's this shit, which is just, I mean, you can just go down the line. Like, she came to fuck somebody up. She really doesn't want to be here at all. She's dead inside. She wishes the gun was bigger. This chick is just glad she can see the gun. And this chick is plotting the death of the cameraman. So, and then there's this drive-by. There's this, what in the nun drive-by is this going on right here? What the fuck?
Wait, have you seen the Commando video? I wonder if it's available. I've seen it once.
I'm afraid. I'm also afraid that one of these is going to be porn on accident, and because I have taste search always off. This must be training for having a gun shoved into your clavicle. Wow. So do continue. Tell us about the Iranian female police.
I mean, at least
I continue to look at astonishing photographs of Contra nuns. I don't really know how to describe this. There's a sort of pretty Contra nun. Oh, that's just a funeral. Okay, you wouldn't know.
Also, you notice she's not wearing the full hijab, So she's obviously not on the government's approved list because you can see
Obviously
her hair.
Sinner, David. Obviously a sinner. Someone
I mean,
should...
go over one to the left from where you just were.
Huh?
Like you can see, sinners, sinner.
Yeah.
Like, see, why are they arresting her? Because you can see her hair.
Are those real sunglasses? They are. Those are real. They're actually there. That's not Photoshop.
The Reverend Sister Josie Wales.
This is this is an actual world that we are actually citizens in.
Denizen is the appropriate word, not citizen. Denizen.
Yeah, apparently. This shit right here just reminds me of RoboCop all the way. Like, remember that scene in RoboCop where like all the cops are in the shooting range and they're just shooting, and all of a sudden they realize they can hear one motherfucker of a pistol going, and they all stop shooting and eventually walk over, and that one dude that plays the almost offensively stereotypical black cop goes, "Look at the size of that gun!" And he couldn't be more like blaxploitation if he tried. That times 8.
Right?
Oh my
so,
god!
I mean, we can't talk about this without talking about and for those of you who don't understand what's going on in Iran, a couple of months ago, a Kurdish woman was leaving a subway station, and she probably had a little bit of hair exposed underneath her hijab, which is so, or rather, not hit. I always get the terminology mixed up. Niqab and hijab. Basically, her covering over her head might have slipped back a little, which, ironically, for a lot of Iranian women, they kind of do on purpose, mostly because they're just like, I like to feel pretty and not have to cover myself entirely all the time.
You know, imagine that.
The Iranian morality police arrested her, and she died in custody. Which led to a lot of people asking a lot of questions about
them. She happened to die.
Now, a lot of people had a lot of issues with this because the rules about clothing, especially, the Iranian government has long ago given up on a lot of media censorship issues, simply because they realize that everyone in any metropolitan city will simply grab a satellite dish and stick it on the top of their roof, and they'll get whatever they want. The state media still does whatever they want to do, and still toes the government line, but they've long ago learned most of our people are going to get news from other places. Well, you can't really do anything about it, and trying to crack down on it will cause more trouble than it's worth. But one of the places where the government
be there the first time someone turns on like Showtime after 11 p.m. on their satellite in Iran. I feel like that would be a beautiful video, like just the reaction video, like all those YouTube fucking reaction videos, except it's reaction of Iranian dude turning on Showtime after 11 p.m. on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night for the first time on his satellite. Just the tears of titty joy, just the streams of titty joy.
So they long ago gave up on that. But the places where they still maintain a lot of control are, number one, in who gets to run for office. So the Iranian government has this thing called the Guardian Council, which is a council of 12 imams who are responsible for choosing which candidates can run for office because they are sufficiently Islamic. Above all of this is the supreme leader, right, who is considered the chief religious authority of the country. And since the country is ostensibly a religious government, he is overall the person in charge. During the 70s, when the Iranian Revolution occurred, it was a guy named Khomeini.
Is this the Ayatollah, or is that a different office?
This is the Ayatollah. That's how we refer to him. They would refer to him as Supreme Leader. At and just because apparently Persians have a whole thing with putting K's at the beginning of things, the new supreme leader who succeeded Khomeini is Khamenei. Not Khomeini, but Khamenei.
Well, they've managed to come up with their own cheap Amazon knockoff.
Yeah, everything. A lot of things have K's. Like one of the better reformist presidents that Iran has had was named Khatami. There's a lot of K's. Normally, you can tell if someone's part of the political elite in Iran if they have a K in front of their name. If they have a K in front of their name, they're probably important.
This introduces me to a whole new possible solution to the problem, David, and it's another K word: katana. Now I have a fantasy of a movie, like a super cheesy pulp kung fu movie, where some guy comes in and just chops all of them in half, like just this
so
long,
weak. So
drawn out action.
Dude,
sequence.
you just went like 80s geek boy in the worst possible way. I don't even know what to tell you. That's all that is aught shit, and you know it. All that is aught shit. That's not none of that is 80s geek boy. Oh, he has to pull out the one piece of 80s geek boy that he has on his shelf.
The best part is that we're talking about Iran, and I chose the arms dealer of Cobra.
Oh, that is true. That is
in the
true.
interest of not running too far past our 2-hour goal,
Yeah.
I want to point out at the end of the day, my problem with all of this is the lack of balls. Like the U.S. soccer coaches and all these guys apologized on behalf of the team and players. Fuck that! It's so
No,
frustrating to me
here's the deal.
to watch
It
these
is
people fall all over themselves. Let U.S. soccer's officials that made the decision make an apology. The coaches and the team and the players, they owe no apology to not a damn soul.
and I'm going to say this from my perspective, which is the Iranian government constantly puts up the United States as the backer of any sort of protest or attempt to reform or liberalize the government.
Yeah, we're the great Satan.
Pretty much. And
But literally, that's what they call us.
it is, and it's not entirely I mean mostly, but not entirely off base. So all right, so to give you all a quick history lesson, Lucas hit the button. Lucas hit the button.
Oh, Jesus. That's right.
Hit the button, Lucas.
I've been slow on the time machine.
So here's what happened. In the 1950s, the Iranians elected a liberal democratic prime minister by the name of Mossadegh. Mossadegh had a problem, though. Americans and English were...
Nick?
Yeah, Mossadegh.
That sounds like a rapper name.
Right? Americans and the English were basically pulling oil out of Iran and paying Iran nothing for it. Iran at this time was a parliamentary democracy. Mossadegh said, by the way, you owe us taxes on all that shit. In fact, you owe us a shit ton of taxes on all that shit. Because we'd like to industrialize, and we need money to do that, and we have oil, and you all are taking the oil out of the country, so you all should pay for it. So they killed Mossadegh, and then they replaced him with an authoritarian monarchy in the form of the Shah. And for those of you who don't remember why the Islamic Revolution happened, it was to overthrow the Shah of Iran, the authoritarian government. Now, I want to point out, the only reason that authoritarian government was even semi-pro-Western was because that's where his money came from. Right? We paid him, and so therefore he wanted Iran to be appealing to Westerners. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the reason for the Islamic backlash against him. He also tortured and murdered thousands of his own people, tens of thousands of his own people. And one of the first things he did was he didn't target the Islamists. He targeted the people arguing for liberal democracy in his country because they had a liberal democracy. And they killed it. So there's a reason they refer to us as the Great Satan, is because we killed their government that they had that was arguing for their freedom and development, and then we put in place a dictator who murdered people at will.
I mean,
and
long maintained white people fucking around in the desert has been pretty much the problem with human civilization since human civilization. So
actually, that's not entirely inaccurate. I'm not entirely against that like blanket statement.
I have like 5 core theories, and one of them is white people fucking around in the desert has been basically the root of all evil in humanity's history. There's also Lucas's unified theory of being the man. What was it? Lucas's 12 stage list of negative. I forgot. There's all sorts of shit. It used to be in all of my online bios when bios were a big deal.
But anyway, there's a reason they call us the Great Satan. But avoiding connecting ourselves with the reform movement that's happening in Iran, I think is good, because it undercuts the regime's ability to say, oh, well, you all are just like the Shah, or just you're just another set of Western puppets trying to control our country.
But don't you think the same thing could be accomplished just by saying, look, we didn't make that decision. It's not about us. We hope that U.S. soccer will decide to address it. We're here to play the game, and we have no concern over how anything is represented graphically.
Yeah, again, when you kill like the father of Iranian democracy, you kind of go a little bit further than that.
You think so, though? I mean,
yeah, kind of. I mean,
how long ago?
Imagine if like some Persian Empire had killed George Washington, like after he became president.
Can't some shit just get old enough to get over it?
I mean, I'm just pointing out, like, imagine some Persian like empire killed George Washington, which is Mosdek to them. Mosdek is like their George Washington. You kind of hang on to that for a bit.
I mean, I see your point, but I don't know. It's. I just hate it when people kowtow and bend and tap dance. It just always pisses me off. So that's why I started paying attention, and then I found out that they were pissy about anybody that didn't say Iran. That you had to you couldn't say Iran, which is why I've been Iraning really fucking hard for about a week. And I think I'm going to Iran forever. I didn't even care. I used to say Iran on my own, Iran. But I felt like rednecks kind of said Iran, and now I'm down with it.
Iran. It doesn't, honestly.
Iran was usually my go-to. Iran occasionally, but Iran I always considered a little bit redneck. I always considered a little bit Bush Cheney.
Here's the thing. English is a fucked up language. We are a mismatch of like 4 different invaders. 5, really. We're going to pronounce shit however. Ask everyone else who's ever had to learn our fucking language. There is no rules. There was only Thunderdome.
And apparently, like at some point during all of this flap about the logo or the press conference or the apology, like there was some fucking bullshit about the pronunciation, and that's what really got me. I was like, really, fuck you. I'm gonna now say Iran all the fucking time. I didn't even fucking care about it like a week ago, and now fuck you, Iran.
And I want to point this out. One of the saddest things about this entire thing, and I'm going to close this out as we head to our 2.5 hour mark, with the saddest thing that I find about this entire situation, which is, to me personally, one of the things that's frustrating about the entire Middle East thing is that we have let the rednecks of Iran, doesn't fucking matter to me, color our view of a country that would like to be free. and we've allied ourselves to a country, to a group of countries who don't like freedom, who like oppressing other people, who are actually the rednecks of the Arab world, that being the Saudis, the UAE, these other groups who, if you look at the reality of what is the Middle East, Iran is a country which we should be allied to. And through that alliance, be able to help these people. Instead of allying ourselves to a thoroughly dictatorial regime. At least Iran has some level of democracy, has some level of reformists can get elected to president and want to change things. The Saudis don't have that. The Saudis don't have anything resembling that. Qatar doesn't have anything resembling that.
Yeah.
The UAE doesn't have anything resembling that. Our natural alliance should be with other, at least semi-representative governments. And instead, we've
hard with
allied
these assholes. I mean, splitting that hair is pretty tough, man.
I mean, it is. But the thing is that we've had productive conversations with people. And one of the things that we miss here in the U.S. is right now, the conservative government is afraid in Iran. There are traditional groups that helped lead the revolution against the Shah who are reformists. And the conservatives are afraid that these people, that these families who helped lead the revolution are now against them and with the people who say we've gone too far. Things have gotten too bad. And we need to change. And the government, part of the reason these protests are continuing is those reformist families, those leaders of those people who led the Iranian Revolution against the Shah, are now turning around and saying, guys, no, this isn't what we wanted. This isn't what we set up. This level of theocracy, we latched on to Khomeini to help push a revolution. But we never expected this. And those families are now in the street. The Ayatollah's own niece is now in Ivan prison, which is notorious for its torture and oppression for political dissidents. Because so many of the leaders of Iran, like traditional leaders of Iran, are saying, no. We've gone. This has gone wrong. And we have to change.
That's an interesting perspective. I'm still going to be on my anger wagon, but at least you've given us something to think about. And I am glad they're out of the tournament, because if we're going to have this corrupt, nation-ruining pile of garbage called the FIFA World Cup, let's at least have some wins.
I take it as again, we called this two good guys enter, one guy leaves. One good guy leaves. One of the problems is that, and one of the things that I guess we didn't really explain very well in this segment until now, is that the Iranian national team had been standing in solidarity with the protesters.
Yeah, they were. This has not been about the team or the players. And actually, I had a friend of mine, a new friend of mine here in town. He's somebody I know through the Comic-Con crew. He's actually from Malaysia. He's here on a visa in school. One of the coolest people I know. One of the coolest people I've ever met. He says hilarious shit to me when we go have beers, like, in America, you have such integrity. And I'm like, and then he explains to me how fucking corrupt his country is. And so I had done a post like "fuck you, Iran," and it was on the USA win, and he had done a sad face. And I was like, "Oh, I hope he doesn't think I'm just generically hating on Muslim people." So I explained to him. I said, "Hey, watch the show tonight. We're going to talk about this." And I said, "I saw your sad face, and I just, I didn't know how that was interpreted." He said, "Oh, I had a bet on that game, and I had bet that Iran would not lose." Or something. It was like there would be a 0-0 or I don't know. Anyway, his sad face was about the bet. He's like, I'm Team USA all the way. And he said, you guys have a great team or something. And I said, you don't have to you guys.
We actually
me.
Do this year. We actually don't have.
I said, you don't have to you
epically
guys
bad
me
team.
because in my book, you're plenty of American for me already, visa or not. And
Yeah.
I wish we all looked at people that way.
And we should.
As much of a big fucking asshole as I am at the end of the day.
Here's the deal. My big Irish ass. I want to point out, my big Irish ass came over here. My ancestors came over here before independence. And one of the cool things that I grew up with from a family on both sides of my family who have been here since before there was a United States is we remember getting off the boat. We didn't start out here.
Yeah.
We came here.
Well, none
Other
of us-
people come here.
None of us did. Well, not none of us, but
I know,
especially
but it's
here
one of the
where I
things
live
that
in a place that
it's
actually
always
hasn't
shocking
been
that people forget is yes, we are Americans, but we came from someplace else. And one of the things that's always saddest to me, and one of the things that to me makes America so great, is that we have the ability, by the fact that every tribe of every nation on earth has sent its sons and daughters here. And that, to me, if we're looking for a moral responsibility for us as a country, it is that we have a moral responsibility. People complain about America being the world's policeman. We do have an obligation to be the world's policeman, and the reason why is because you've come here. We have an obligation to help where you came from.
Oh boy, that's well put. Yeah, it is. That's well put.
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean, my ancestors came here in 1769. And we've been here ever since. And on my mom's side, they came here in 16 fuck all.
I forgot how that tracks in my family lineage. But the next time you give me shit for not actually living in Davidson County, Nashville city limits growing up and try to say it's not my hometown, I'm going to remind you that I have ancestors. I have ancestors on the Cumberland Compact and you don't. So fuck off.
You don't live there anymore, bitch.
That's true. Look at this. Some of that beer sloshed on my finger and it won't even run. It's like
Oh my god. All right, we're over time.
We are over time.
And we have our playout music continuously going on, and we're still talking.
it's been running.
We're so sorry, everyone.
That's okay, because this is a really good discussion, and I'm really glad we touched on all these topics. It was a lot of fun. I hope people had fun. As always, please feel free to spread the word. Tell some other people about these two crazy bastards that drink beer and talk liberal shit once a week. As much as I pressure him to take a break once in a while, at least you will always find David hold down the fort. Next week on Thursday, I will be missing the show.
Like a goddamn hoplite.
I will be missing the show because the kid has a Christmas band concert and parenting has to come first sometimes.
And you have to listen to nothing but me for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, so you've all got to show up and talk shit. You all have to. In fact, I'm going to sit in the auditorium while the concert's going on and just randomly talk shit with no idea what you're actually saying. So anyway, as always, we really appreciate you guys joining us. We really appreciate anybody chiming in and contributing to the banter. And if you've been lurking quietly, collecting incriminating evidence for all of our future endeavors, hi, nice to see you. Thanks.
What's
for coming.
up?
And just remember that we're already doing this in private and having fun with it. We're just being real for you. And if you don't think anything we have to say makes any sense and you hate our guts, trust me, if you had enough beers with us, it would eventually make sense. That's how it worked with this guy. With that, we say good night,
Good evening.
and
And
good
luck.
luck.